Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of multinational mining companies, particularly financially raping the poorest countries of the world, Africa and so on, to extract vast amounts of minerals. Whether this is iron ore or diamonds or gold or whatever it might be, cobalt, and not paying anything to these African countries, which is keeping them poor. Ostensibly, these African countries are sitting on vast amounts of mineral wealth. Surely they should be very rich. Why are they not rich? And is it, as is suggested or claimed, it's because the big, evil, greedy Western mining companies are financially raping these people, taking everything and paying nothing? Is that the sort of a quite well-funded social justice type network of goons and propagandists that are insisting this? And there's a lot of printed literature. A lot of these people are invited to go around to Western universities and talk to the angry blue-haired lesbian crowd and so on, saying how terrible and evil white society is, which of course is lapped up as being, those Nazis, but what's the reality? Is that now, when it comes to international mining companies, let's be clear, shady deals and dirty tricks are part of the kit bag, so there's no question of that. But that's not the issue here. Those sort of things go on in Western countries as well, the dirty tricks. So let's just have a look at, the more sophisticated than Western countries, like it'll be big ticket insurance scams and things like that. But let's have a look at the African countries. Now, let's say a mineral is discovered in an African country. It's the African country is already dirt poor. The government controls only certain sections of the country. Rebels, guerrillas, and all sorts of insurgents are controlling other parts. Much of the country is impassable. You can't go anywhere without a serious military detachment in support. The place is a basket case, but they still have gold or something there, some mineral, whatever, that's in demand. So if you're a Western mining company and you want to extract the gold, or the gold is to be extracted, what do you do? Now, the country is too poor to organise things themselves. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the capital. They don't have the resources to protect the mine from the guerrillas and the insurgents and so on. So they just can't do it themselves. It's not like they'd like to do it, or they're being prevented from doing it, or they're being denied. They just couldn't do it. No investor would give money to a corrupt basket case government, because all that money will end up going to the pockets of a handful of dictator goons, because they're so corrupt. So that's off the table. Whereas in a Western country or any sort of orderly country, you could invest that money, and the local government or the local infrastructure could support it. But in those countries you can't. So that's an option that is available elsewhere, but it's not available here in Africa. So, all right, then, well, what do? You still want to mine the gold, and you're a big mining company, and you've still got a pragmatic business sort of case to make here, regardless of what other sundry dirty tricks may go on. It still has to stack up as a business case. So you look at what needs to be done. Well, you have to build a large airport to take in large cargo planes. You've got to build a port. It's got to be a deep water port, because it's taking ships that are going to carry heavy loads of minerals. So it has to be deep water. It can't be some fishing village port or something. That's expensive to build the port. The port has to have loading facilities. It has a warehousing. It has to have storage. On top of that, you need roads, and good roads that can take heavy trucks. You need rail, good quality rail that's built to first world standards. You can't hand it to some local contractor. They'll do some shit job of building some half-assed road or rail that'll fall over as soon as you look at it. It's your first world raw materials, steel that's made in the first world. This is seriously expensive. infrastructure. Now, the country will benefit from the roads because other people will use the roads, the roads and the rail. The rail will be accessible to the local people under certain times and conditions and so on. So there's this infrastructure being built, the port, the roads, the store, all those infrastructure facilities are going to benefit the local economy. Now, on top of that, you're going to create a lot of jobs, whether it's some truck driving jobs or, I don't know, toilet cleaners. It doesn't matter, but you're going to create jobs there, and local people are going to get paid and spend their money in the local economy and so on. But the corrupt tin pot dictator goons that run the country, they don't really give a shit about all that. What they do want to do, though, is line their own pockets. So they say, well, the government won't approve that, what you're mining and this infrastructure, the government won't approve it until you pay me and each of my relatives $1 million a year or $10 million a year. So that gets factored into the business case. We've got to spend $100 million in bribes to these corrupt goons, and we've got to spend gazillions on infrastructure because it's a dirt poor country. There is no infrastructure. So we've got to spend gazillions in infrastructure, and if we've got to also pay the government, on per ton of stuff mined or something like that, if we're going to pay, then it would be a million years before the mine would be economically viable. So we might just walk away from it. But the corrupt, African goons, they want their corruption money and their kickbacks and their payments. So they're quite okay. No, you don't have to pay any sort of royalties or commissions or other payments on extracting so you can go extract as much as you want. And by the way, we'll provide local labourers to help you do it. Now, because it's a dirt poor country with a vast surplus population, you can employ people for slave labour wages, so much so that it's cheaper to use them than it is to bring in machinery. The government effectively wants that because those people would otherwise be guerrillas running around causing trouble. So they don't care if those people are employed in the mine as slave labour wages. That appears to be exploitation by the Westerners. Look at that poor African kid working in the mines. Those kids, though, are lining up to work at the mine to get a couple of bucks a week or whatever it is, because they're already below dirt poor poverty. So to them, it's a step up. Is it sort of annoying, or does it seem unseemly from the point of view of Western sensibilities, first world sensibilities? Well, it does look a bit tawdry in a lot of ways, but the reality is that for a dirt poor basket case country where you walk across dead bodies in the street, this is a step up for them. So relative to their circumstances, this is not exploitation as they would see it. It is from the first world, angry Jewish lesbian that will complain about it, but it's not from the local people and local circumstances. So really the mining company can't afford to pay royalties if they've got to pay for all this other stuff. And remember, the money that they would pay royalties that would go into a treasury is being paid as bribes to the ruling families and their goons. Also, because of the nature of these remote areas where the mines are, that there's insurgencies and armed squads of heavies running around, that you need quite a substantial armed military presence around the mine. That's expensive. And so the expenses that the mining company has to go to, putting infrastructure in, maintaining security with effectively an armed militia on permanent standby, all these sorts of things, the ports, the whole nine yards, the corrupt payments to the leading families, and so that's all heavy overhead, a substantial overhead to doing business. So there's not much money left, and the money that would have been paid in royalties, of course, is being paid out in corrupt payments. So that's why it goes on. So the mining, again, the mining companies are notorious for their dirty tricks, but again, the business case has to stack up, and this is how it does in those third world countries. Now, there's a lot of folks running around. I saw a talk recently at a university where a well-known sort of leftist, all white people are evil and Nazi and everything, activist was talking there, and he was making the case that, or attempting to make the case rather, that the reason African countries are poor isn't because they're poor and corrupt and inept and constantly in civil wars. No. Evil Whitey's the reason. And he cited the mining companies as being the classic reason why, and he listed the amount of mining companies that weren't paying royalties to the African treasury, but he ignored all the other things, so the massive infrastructure, the military presence, the corrupt payments to the goons, and tried to make out as a completely white issue. White people are the cause, when that's not the case. Let's look at it a little bit differently. Let's suppose the African country wasn't a basket case to begin with, a corrupt basket case of constant civil war and so on. Let's go, it wasn't that. Then they would have infrastructure there. They would welcome infrastructure in areas where they didn't have it, and they would want those royalties to go into the exchequer, the treasury, so they could the mining royalties, so they could go into the treasury, so that could be used to improve infrastructure, improve the lives of their fellow citizens. But that's not how these corrupt African people see it. They never have, and I doubt they ever will. That there'll be a small subset maybe, but they're mostly killed off because the people with power and influence, they want their corrupt payments. And if there's some government or gets in that wants to act on behalf of the people, then they'll be killed. There's little question about it, little doubt about it. So this idea that it's white people are the cause of the problem and so on is simply not true. And if there was a government, an African government that represented the people in their interest, as in people in their totality, and not some small tribal family subset, village subset of people, then it would be very different. But it's not. That's not how it is. So the Western mining companies are doing the only thing they can do. They have to make the corrupt payments, otherwise the mining won't be allowed. They have to, and because they make those corrupt payments are effectively the royalties that would otherwise go to the treasury, and they've got that infrastructure to put in. A military presence is required because the government can't maintain law and order in the country. So these are the things, and it was particularly irritating and annoying that none of this stuff, not even one iota of this information is put forward. Instead, the black people are painted as innocent, put upon victims by evil fascist Nazi Whitey, when that's simply not true. And a more balanced. Now, I don't know. Every time this speaker at this university, lots of blue and green haired, young women in the audience. Every time the guy said "and Nazis" and came out with these sort of, they were effectively applause lines. Everyone applauses and standing over. Yeah, Hitler, fascist. Yeah. When none of those factors are true or even remotely true, and none of the reality was mentioned even once. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.